Home buyers and sellers are both walking away from the Toronto real estate stalemate. Yeah, things are getting a little bit dire between the two, the buyers and the sellers. And it's kind of like a game of chicken on who blinks first right now. The buyers are looking at the inventory building and it's increased 70%, where sales are again at a 20-year low, whereas the sellers are looking at rate cuts, and when that's going to happen, thinking that there's going to be a huge boom in the market when that happens. So who's going to blink first? Yeah, this is a stalemate, and this is exactly what I'm going to be going over with you on the latest numbers that got released by the Toronto Real Estate Board. Now, if you are contemplating making a move in the Toronto real estate market in 2024 and are kind of wondering what the market dynamics look like for your specific move, because if you're trying to buy and sell, where you're selling and where you're buying are two totally different dynamics, right? Because everyone's situation is different. And if you want to talk about your situation, you could book a call with me using the link that's on the screen right here. It's www.chatwithzen.com. Simply click on the date and a time that works best for you. And then when you see the prompt, fill in your name, email, mobile phone number, and the question you have for me. And then we'll chat then. Good day, Toronto. Welcome to another episode of Prime Properties TV. My name is Zen, and if you're enjoying the content I'm putting out there, do me a favor and like and subscribe. Now, this stalemate between the buyers and the sellers right now, it's really bad. And you can kind of see it in the latest numbers that came out in the month of May. You can see over here on this chart, on surface level, everything looks great. Everything is green. So why is Zen concerned, you may ask? Well, the data backs up everything I've been saying about what's happening in Toronto real estate market and how it's softening. And unless you know what you are looking for, you don't know what you are looking for. It's the same concept as reading the headline of a news article, but not understanding the context and reading the actual article. So on the surface, things look great, Yes, prices are up month over month. Woo! Sales are up month over month. Whoop-de-doo. But the problem lies in this one number right here. Ding! The months of inventory, it's up 67%. That is not a good sign. Remember, as months of inventory increases, it means that prices are more likely to decrease, or in this current case, stagnate because the 2.5 months of inventory. It's up 67% in 1 month. That's a lot, right? And inventory is still increasing as I'm talking right now. And the reason we're having this problem is twofold. You see, in April, sales are only up 6.44%, give or take, and it's like 7,100, which is like a 20-year low if you do not count the April during the pandemic. Then you also see that new listings in the month of April are up 36%. That alone between the two is a 5-time spread between sales and listing. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. 1 month does not make a trend, but a trend does start with 1 month. And this is exactly why I've been saying, if you want to sell your property, you better be a 10 out of 10 or are priced correctly for the current market conditions, because there's a lot of stuff out there. And because of this dynamic, this is exactly why we're seeing a 70% increase in active listings, meaning the amount of properties for sale at the end of the month. We're at 18,000. 18,000 for some context is where we were last year in 2023 when the market just completely froze. That's the context. We're there now. You see what I mean, right? Now, before everyone's like, oh, Zen, you're so pessimistic all of a sudden. Prices are up. Look, I fully expect prices to be up in April because that's when all the big detached homes are out. And if they're still a 10 out of 10, they will sell, which ultimately drags up the average, especially in Toronto. And the reason for this is the months of inventory for freehold properties in both the 416 and the 905 right now, it's roughly around 2. So it's moving. The problem lies in the condo market, where the months of inventory is at 3.5 for both 416 and the 905, meaning the suburbs of Toronto. And if we look at just Toronto alone, it's at like 3.75. Do you see where the problem is? Yeah, the Toronto condo market, right? The condo market and the freehold market is basically separating, like I've been saying before. And here's the issue. The sellers of the Toronto condo market right now are abundant because if you think about who are the sellers right now, the sellers of the condo market comprise of investors who are bleeding and they can't / do not want to hold on to these properties as they're going into renewing of their mortgages and the payments will probably be higher this year. And then you also have the millennials who all had pandemic babies and they need more space who are selling their condos to move into the entry-level freehold. So those cohort of sellers are coming to the market and there's a lot of stuff, which is forcing a lot of inventory right now. Now think about who the buyers of this abundant amount of condos are. It's usually investors and first-time home buyers. I can tell you the math ain't mathing right now for investors right now with these high rates. And for first-time home buyers, some of them are just doing the math, and I've done the buy versus rent before in this current condition, and sometimes it just makes sense to rent because it's like $1,000 less expensive than having a mortgage, condo fees, and taxes and insurance, right? And even the mortgage pay down on your principal is going to be less than that $1,000 spread because rates are high. So a lot of them are kind of just like chilling. So when the entire market at like the bottom of the real estate market is kind of frozen, it's very difficult to have anything happen in the rest of the market unless you're essentially trading freeholds, going from say like a townhouse to a detached or a detached to a freehold. That is a whole different type of market and it's moving, right? Yeah, slowly moving. But look, don't get me wrong. It's not that like the condos aren't moving, right? Or the entire market isn't moving. It just really depends on what each buyer and seller is trying to do. But the standstill here, like I said last week, is that buyers do not want to pay the sellers' prices for their property because the sellers think right now that the prices are going to go to the moon when the first rate cut happens. And that's kind of that giant gap that's causing the stalemate. It's that simple. And this is exactly why buyers and sellers are just walking away from the real estate market and be like, peace, I'm done. Unless they ultimately meet on the price. And that really depends on the product. Now, let me continue showing you the trends that, are making this stalemate continue. So the first chart here is essentially the active listings chart. And this is in the last 5 years. You can essentially see that dotted white line that from March to April goes boom, right? Yeah, that's a lot of inventory you can see, right? And we're now matching the peak active listings of like 2019, which is when we got a minor rate hike compared to right now and the stress test. And we're also kind of matching the peak active listings of the fall of 2023, like I was saying earlier this year. Now here's the chart for sales. And again, like I said, it's very, very slow, even worse than last year. And the only year it beat was obviously the pandemic year in 2020 for obvious reasons, right? Now this chart here, you need to understand, this is the months of inventory and it's starting to climb. It's not like quite where we were in the fall of 2023 when the months of inventory was sitting at 4, because again, that was when the market just completely froze. But if we continue to see inventory like this and sales slow like this for the rest of the spring market in May and June, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. Now, everyone talks about how there are a lot of pent-up buyers, and I agree. There definitely are pent-up buyers. I can see that. I talk to them a lot. But what everyone forgets is that there's also a lot of pent-up sellers that went off the market in 2023. That stuff is now coming online. So the question is this: what will come first? The rate cuts that will spur some kind of increase in demand, or the buildup of excess inventory and the sellers slowly starting to get desperate on these renewals as they happen this year before the rate cuts happen? That is the game of chicken between the buyers and sellers that the stalemate is causing. Now, here's the chart for just the Toronto condos alone, because I was saying it's the weakest market to date. So yeah, it's climbing a little bit faster than the rest of the market. Now let's look at the historic numbers to give you a context of where we stand. You can basically see here that April for active listings, orange line being the average for the historic, 10-year average is the yellow line, and we're well above both of them, right? Meaning lots of stuff to choose from if you're a buyer, but it's like not a huge amount compared to like what we've seen before. It's just a huge amount relative to what, everyone's accustomed to and call it the last 5 years, right? Now, if you've been, around as long as I have, which I do feel like a dinosaur sometimes, you'll know this is nothing compared to the ice cold days of like April 2017, right after the foreign buyer tax. It was like crickets frozen, right? But this is to show you that active listings is starting to grow, and that is the problem that we'll be encountering in May and June. It's because these sales I can see over here are slow, and these pent-up sellers are coming to the market before the buyers make a move, right? You can basically see in this chart that, our April in 2024 is the worst one and keeps getting worse and worse outside of the 20-year low in, the pandemic, right? Because, that was not a fun time. And we have to go all the way back to 2003 to see this little sales. Don't forget, Toronto has grown quite a bit in the last 2 decades, right? Now, as for new listings, it's kind of exactly what we expect. It's about the same, but like the chart showed you earlier, the new listings are not getting absorbed. One of the things I will note is that in 2023 on this chart, you can see here, we had very, very little new listings. It was like an all-time low. And this is why prices spiked, because when you have normal-ish sales, but your new listings are so low, which means that there's not many things to choose from, prices go up. Now, in terms of new listings, we're back to the normal so that we don't have that ace in the hole to kind of keep the market afloat because there's more stuff to choose from. And this is exactly why new listings currently right now feel like it's a ton because we're just not accustomed to it. And it's also because the demand to buy is so low right now that's causing this whole thing to spiral, leading us to this chart right here, which is the months of inventory. Yeah, it's high. Like, there's nothing more to say about this. It's high. That bar is just high. It's not normal. It's way too high right now for April. This is why if we continue to have new listings continue on the market, even at a normal pace, we're going to have an abundance of listing buildup, i.e. the active listings in the spring, unless we get some kind of magical sentiment change, which is still TBD. Remember, there is no Bank of Canada rate announcement in May. The next ones are like early June. Now this chart here is the sales to new listing ratio, and you can see it's going down. This chart just basically shows a percentage of how much of the new listings are being absorbed. 50% is a balanced market, and you can see in April, this is the lowest sales to new listing ratio we ever have seen historically. Boom! I would drop this mic if I could, but I can't. But that is your problem right there, right? I hope this gives you like a clearer picture as to what's happening in the real estate market right now, because surface level, things seem dandy. But underneath, we have some problems. And this is why we have a stalemate or a game of chicken between the buyers and sellers, and it comes down to basically the balance sheet of the sellers to see if they can hold out for the rate hike. Personally, I think if we keep up at this pace until like say the first rate hike, which again, even if it's June, we are going to have so much inventory to go through that we better get another one in July and then another one in September just to move the sentiment to absorb that inventory. And I've been saying this a lot, and I'm going to remind all of you who are watching right now. I personally think if we get more than 2 rate cuts, we're kind of in a recession territory, and that's just a whole different ballgame. But again, time will tell. Now, if you're wondering what to do about your real estate plans in 2024 after watching this video, because, there's a lot of information, a lot of charts here, and you may get a little bit confused, but if you want to talk with someone who understands all of this, me, right, and has the experience to kind of guide you through this turbulent time that's in the Toronto real estate market and, just craziness for a lack of a better term, you could book a call with me using a link that's right here. It's www.chatwithzen.com. Until next time, your move, your future. See ya. Now that you're done watching this one, how about this one or this one? You know what? Just watch them both.